Hi, welcome back to Conversations on My Couch. Today I want to talk about cravings. Have you ever found yourself staring at food that you know you shouldn't eat, fighting with yourself in your own head, trying to convince yourself, just be good, only to cave and binge anyway? Yeah, me too. And that's addiction. And it's not just hunger, it's not just bad habits, it's literally your brain screaming at you for dopamine hit. But cravings, really aren't a sign of failure. They're a very normal part of recovery. The key is to knowing how to handle them so that they don't pull you back into the cycle of addiction. I used to think that I just had no willpower. I'd be doing good all day long and I'd be eating my whole plant food diet, and then suddenly, boom, I'd find myself in the kitchen and I'd be eating something that I wasn't even hungry for. And it was like I wasn't even in control of my own body. Like my brain had hijacked me. I remember this one time I told myself that I would just have one bite of something, and before I knew it, I was scraping the bottom of the container. I felt sick, I was ashamed, and I wondered what just happened. And then I realized this wasn't just me being weak. This is an addiction. My brain was chemically wired to keep me stuck. But once I understand how cravings work, everything changed. And today, I'm going to break down exactly how I have fought cravings so that they don't control me anymore. Hi friends, if you don't know me, I'm Carrie, a recovering food addict who once weighed over 500 pounds, and food controlled every aspect of my life. I'm glad you're here with me today on the couch to talk about cravings, because cravings were one of the hardest parts of recovery for me. They don't just go away overnight. Mine took probably, I would say a good couple of months to go completely away. And even then, they still pop up from time to time. But I learned how to take control instead of letting them control me. So if you've ever been a food addict, cravings don't feel just like a thought. They're physical. It's your body screaming at you to eat that thing. I mean, totally you're going to die if you don't. The food noise was so loud and just banging away on my brain. I used to get this tight feeling in my chest, and my hands would fidget around and my brain would race. Thoughts would just go racing through my brain. So I'd start coming up with these excuses, Have you ever have you ever thought of these? Have these ever popped into your head? Just this one time. I'll start over tomorrow. Monday's a new day. And every time that I would give in, it would feel like this massive, massive relief until the guilt would set in. Until the cycle started all over again. And most people, they think that cravings mean you're hungry. But you know what? Not necessarily true. Because cravings are actually your brain demanding dopamine. So, for example, when you eat sugar, processed junk, or fast food, your brain releases this huge flood of dopamine, way more than real food would ever give you. And over time, your brain gets used to this high amount of dopamine. And when you don't give it what it wants, it throws a fit. And that, my friends, is a craving. But there is good news. Cravings are temporary. They come in waves, and you can learn how to ride them out, and then they'll pass. Every time you resist, you also start rewiring your brain, and eventually your cravings start to fade. But you do have to push through the hard part first. And I know that's a little bit rough to hear. We kind of all want that magic pill or that magic potion, or just someone to tell us that we don't have to suffer through anything, that it's going to all be okay. And for years, I tried all of the wrong things. I would tell myself I just needed more discipline. I would try just white knuckling my way through cravings, but eventually I would snap. I even tried moderation, but for a food addict, moderation's a lie. One taste just pulls you right back in. And the moment everything changed for me was when I stopped relying on willpower and started changing my environment. So I removed all of the trigger foods. My kitchen was clean. My house was clean. I planned ahead. I stopped fighting with myself and I started riding that wave. And so here's exactly what I do when the cravings hit and I feel like I'm about to lose control and my sanity. So the first thing that I do is I'm going to interrupt that craving immediately. So when a craving starts, I don't just sit there and fight with myself. I change what I'm doing. I stand up. I drink some water. I go outside. I take deep breaths. If you sit there and you're thinking about the food, then you're probably going to end up eating it. And that's just what's probably going to happen. So you have to take your mind off of it. You have to do something else. You're interrupting that pathway and you have to just change what you're doing. The next thing I do is I eat real whole foods. So a lot of cravings will disappear if you just eat something nutritious. So in other words, if you're actually hungry, then if you eat some steamed veggies or tofu or fresh fruit, then if you're hungry, that will satisfy and that will actually work. I don't really know where this came into play, that if you're hungry and you eat fruit and you don't want fruit, and then you want cake and you eat cake and you feel better, that you were hungry. Because that actually, as we talked about before in the last video, that when you eat the cake, all it's doing is making you feel better temporarily. It's a detox from the cake and the junk. It's not actual hunger. So people like Dr. Joel Fuhrman, they call this toxic hunger. If you want the junk after you eat fresh fruit or tofu or steamed veggies or a salad or carrot sticks, well, I have news for you. It's not true hunger, because it's just a craving. Because true hunger, any food will satisfy it. That fruit is going to taste amazing. The salad greens, oh my goodness, they will just hit the spot if you are actually hungry. But if it's just a craving, nothing's going to hit the spot. The next thing I do is I ride the wave, because this too shall pass. And cravings usually last 15 to 20 minutes maximum. So if you can ride it out without giving in, guess what? You win. Sometimes I set a timer and just wait it out. I remember why I'm doing this. That's the next thing. Like when I feel weak, I remind myself that I'm doing this for me and for my future. I'm doing this because I don't want to be trapped anymore. Food addiction has stolen enough of my life, and I am not letting it win now. So, as in the last video, I kind of liked that little that I did where I was thinking back on what I would tell my past self. So I kind of did the same thing with the cravings. What would I tell Carrie from a year ago about cravings? And I think it would be this. Cravings are not emergencies. You don't have to give in. If you're having a craving, you're not going to die if you don't eat cookies. You can eat fruit if you're hungry, but they're not an emergency. And also, every time that you resist, you're rewiring your brain for freedom. It's as simple as that. We have to rewire the circuits in our brain because we are used to doing what we're used to doing. So if you want to do something different, you're going to have to make that a new pathway in your brain. And I would also tell her that it gets easier. The longer you go without processed food, the weaker the cravings get. The more nutritious food you eat, the less cravings you have. And I would also say that the problem isn't cravings. It's what you do when those cravings hit. So you have a choice. The more you choose recovery, the stronger that you're going to get. I heard Matthew Perry once say that you can always say no the first time. And I have found that this is absolutely true in food addiction. I can say no to my favorite candy, which used to be Reese's peanut butter cups. I haven't had them in years. And it's easy to say no the first time. Somebody says, hey, you want a peanut butter cup? I say no. However, once I say yes, it's going to be almost impossible to say no again. And I have found that life is just easier if I just say no the first time. Because then there's no fighting with myself over it. There's no decisions to be made. It's just easy. It's just, you just say no and you just don't do it and then you just move on. You can find alternatives. I've done that, and if that's easy for you, then I think you should do that. I've made things like I made a healthy version that had no salt, no refined sugar, used dates, and a natural peanut butter that was just peanuts, and a chocolate that, believe it or not, was 100% cacao. And I just made my own peanut butter cups. And I think, let me tell you a little story. I think for me, one of the hardest cravings that I've ever had after I'd been doing this about 6 months. I found myself on autopilot and driving around. I know that sounds a little scary, but when I realized where I was sitting in the parking lot of my favorite Mexican restaurant. I don't remember the exact circumstances of the day. Maybe I was stressed, really emotional, or maybe I was just in a bad headspace. But the craving hit, and it hit hard. And I literally sat there in my car, and my brain was just screaming at me to go in and get some really good food. Now, I have come to believe that really good food is high nutrient dense food, whole real food that's good for you, not processed food full of salt, sugar, and oil. And so I was saying to myself, oh, you need this, you have to. You're going to feel so much better. All you have to do is just go in the store, get out of the car and go in. And I started finding myself saying things like, no one's ever going to know. It's just you here. I can just start again tomorrow. And when those things popped into my head, I had to fight with everything in me not to give in. So when those excuses started coming at me, I knew I am no longer in control. And if I stay in this situation, in this parking lot, looking at this building and smelling that food, I am going to go in and I am going to have something that is going to just wreak havoc on me and ruin what all the progress that I've made in recovery. And so I drove down the road to a park. And I got out of the car and into the fresh air, and I sat down on a bench. I had my water bottle with me, so I started drinking, and I called a friend because I needed to hear someone's voice. I needed to take my mind off of it. And I told myself, just wait 15 minutes. So I did. I did all of those things, and I waited the 15 minutes. And before I knew it, guess what? Not only had the craving passed, but I hadn't even thought about it in probably the last 10 minutes. And it was just this amazing, then I celebrated the victory, which was overcoming the craving to go in and get that Mexican food. That moment was a turning point for me because I realized that I do not have to be controlled by food anymore, that I will not be controlled by food anymore. And believe me, I know better than anyone how hard cravings can be. But I also know that you don't have to be controlled by them forever. And let me know in the comments, what is your biggest struggle with cravings? Because I want to help. Until next time, I hope you'll continue to join our conversations on the couch so that we can do recovery together. Bye.